Dan, I think, is on 3. Yeah. Hey,
Hi.
You're on the air. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I was just flipping through the channels and
all right.
Caught your show and had a question in regards to, I mean, you say you don't believe in a God, and I've got a hang up there, and I don't know, maybe you can help me through this, and I've read a lot of stuff in regards to it and whatnot, as far as creation and is there a creator, is there not a creator, and I think the thing that I look at is I look at all the complex design in this world. I look at the human eye, I look at the solar universe, I look at the stars, billions of stars, and just the complexity of all the design that surrounds us and just the enormity of it all, that I look at it and I say to myself, how can this just evolve? Or, how can there not be a creator behind this design? And somebody once said to me, or explained it in this way, is like, as far as like a Big Bang Theory or whatever, and I'm not saying that you support that or whatever, but, it's kind of like believing that a tornado could go through a junkyard, and when it leaves the junkyard, it's left with a 747
Now, Dan,
in perfect condition.
Okay, Dan, now do you think that a tornado whipping through a junkyard and making a 747 is an accurate analogy to how evolution is supposed to work?
No, but I think it's
wait a minute.
It's an argument for a creator.
But wait a minute. You don't think that
a designer?
But my question was to you: do you think that the idea of a tornado whipping through a junkyard and coming up with a 747 is an accurate analogy to the mechanisms of evolution? Is that an accurate analogy? Do you really think that's an accurate analogy?
No, but I think it's a similar analogy to creator versus non-creator.
But if it's not an accurate analogy to evolution, then it's a moot point to even try to make that comparison. I mean, the whole idea of that this stuff could arise through natural processes is similar to a tornado whipping through a junkyard and creating a 747. If you already admit that is an inaccurate statement, then you should go ahead and dispense with that idea, because it's an inaccurate statement. That has nothing to do with the processes of evolution, which have to do with a number of different factors. It's all sorts of natural laws. Biology comes into play, environment. It's an extremely complex subject. It is true. I mean, biology and evolution are extremely complex mechanisms. Okay, but they are driven by natural processes, and the answer to your questions, I think, will lie in studying these sciences and what science really has to say. Because if you just go to creationist sources for your information, you're going to get information from a lot of folks who haven't really studied the stuff and are making a whole bunch of misunderstandings about it.
Well, I think you're right in that you've got to look at the scientific evidence and what supports what. And one of the most compelling arguments that I've heard out there is a book called A Case for Christ. Lee Strobel.
Yes, we've read it too, and we did not.
It's incredible. It is incredible. Okay, and let me just
we did not find it that incredible.
Well, the evidence in there that supports Christ's life and what he did. Okay, just support this or argue this one point.
Okay.
And this is one of the strongest ones that I feel supports Jesus Christ. Lived, died, and did what he said he did. Lived the perfect life.
Well, first off, what's this? This doesn't have anything to do now with creation. We've kind of gotten away from that now.
Right. No, this is my second question.
Okay.
And that was in regards to the evidence for Christ, that the book by Lee Strobel.
Okay. So what's the terrific point he makes?
Well, the question is, in that book, you've got the disciples of Christ that all went to a martyr's death, believing in what they saw.
And
they died a martyr's death for someone. Now, you don't die for a lie. You don't die for a lie. So if this guy did what he did,
Dan,
and he really was Christ, would you go to your death for a lie?
Dan,
no.
Dan, did the September 11th terrorists die for a lie?
Yeah.
Well, then
there you go.
You've just all right. Let's move on now. You've.
Well, but they were misled.
But you just said people don't die for a lie,
difference.
and we just gave you an example of people who do die for a lie. So it is very What about Japanese kamikaze pilots? Did they die for a lie? What about suicide bombers in the Middle East right now, walking into pizza parlors in Jerusalem and blowing themselves up and killing? Are they dying for a lie?
What about all the cults out there where people kill themselves?
People die for a lie all the time.
What about the 500 witnesses who witnessed him do what he do? The miracles that he did.
We have no evidence.
Who else has done that?
We have no evidence. We have no evidence of those 500 witnesses.
What do you mean no evidence?
We have
the Gospels, the Bible.
We have Paul.
One book.
We have Paul who makes the claim that there are 500 witnesses.
The best-selling book of all time that stood the test of time.
Harry Potter is really good.
Hang on.
And God we trust.
Okay, let's stop. Okay, let's deal with one falsehood at a time here. Okay.
Falsehood.
All right. Okay, there are okay, give me one other source apart from the scriptures that supports the idea, that supports the claim that there were 500 witnesses to this miracle. One other historical source.
There were plenty of documents that supported it.
Tell me again, name one.
Besides the Bible?
Yes.
Well, the Bible is a collection of resources.
Name another one.
It's not one book, it's a collection of books.
Yeah.
A collection of stories.
Okay, but I don't care about that. Name a source outside the Bible. Name a source outside the Bible that supports this claim that there were 500 witnesses to a miracle.
Well, there's plenty of them out there, and I don't know the exact names and titles of them, but I've read about them.
Okay, when you can name one, then call us back and give us one. Give us one historical documentation. Give us one example.
You know, the guy that wrote Case for Christ, he was an atheist.
Give us a...
And he went out there to disprove Christ.
No.
He interviewed these people.
Dan, I used to be a Christian.
To try and disclaim it, and you know what? He turned his life over to Christ because of what he found out, the evidence. I think that's what you got to do. You got to look at the evidence for Christ.
See, Dan, here's the thing, though. Okay.
You do. You got to look at the evidence out there, and you've given no evidence to support otherwise.
That's right, because you're not bringing us any evidence that is anything other than the Bible. And of course, the Bible is going to make claims because it is the purpose of the Bible to convert people to this faith. Okay. But what about extra biblical evidence?
No, the purpose of the Bible is God's plan for our life, man.
Any sort of extra biblical evidence for these claims of miracles. There is no historical source outside the Bible that can be independently confirmed. This is the concept that you're not clear on. Independent confirmation of these claims. I mean, to say, oh, well, the Bible said it, so that means it must be true. Well, you know, then you can apply that to any other source. Okay, the holy book of the Raelians. Okay, makes this one claim about aliens coming to Earth. The Mormons have their holy book. Okay, the Hindus and the Muslims have their holy book, and they all just make these claims.
No,
are you saying that it's sufficient for a book simply to make a claim and then say, okay, that's all the evidence you need? It's a claim in a book. No, you've got to independently confirm those claims. And what I'm telling you is there's no independent confirmation of anything that Paul writes in the Bible saying there are 500 witnesses to a miracle. It's just in that scripture, and it's nowhere else.
You know,
so why should I take it as any more seriously than a legend?
Okay, I know you're trying to discount the Bible, but if you're to read
answer the question. Answer the question.
Look at the evidence that supports the historical.
I am asking you for that evidence
of the Bible.
I am asking you for that evidence. Where is the evidence that can be independently confirmed? That is what I have been asking.
There's lots of it.
Give me an example so I can look at it. What is this independent confirmation?
Well, I'd have to reference some articles and books and documents that I've read, but I don't have those off the top of my head.
Okay, well, then get them, and then we will talk back about that subject.
Okay, now, but look at all the evidence.
Wait, give us the evidence.
Tell us evidence.
Stop telling us you got to look at the evidence and then say, I don't know what the evidence is. If you don't know what the evidence is, stop telling us to look at it. Produce the evidence, and then we'll look at it.
There's jillions of evidence out there.
Great. Produce it, and we'll look at it.
Okay, look, you know, I think, first of all, you have to believe that there's a creator before you can even
Why?
believe
Why? Why?
All right.
Right?
See,
no.
Okay.
Why?
See, here.
No? Why?
Why do I have to accept the fact?
Life is meaningless without some meaning and purpose. We're not just gelatin mold made up from...
That's irrelevant.
I give my life meaning. That has nothing to do with this. Until... with any claim that is ever made in history, if there is no evidence or no good reason to believe it, then the smart thing to do is not believe it until there's evidence. Now, I do that with, you know, gravity. There's no reason to believe in, you know, that all planets are sucking things towards them until you get some evidence. Well, there's evidence. There's at least a little piece of it. So it gives a little bit credence to back it up. Now, if you want to go all the way to that, there are universe-creating entities that are not, you know, any way physical, and they can do anything they want, and they love us all, and all this kind of stuff, then, again, I'm going to need some evidence. So far, I have seen absolutely none, and believe me when I say that I've looked. I have read lots and lots of books, read lots and lots of articles. There simply isn't any out there.
What about biblical prophecy?
What about it?
There is none.
Yeah.
What do you mean there is none?
What do I know? They're Bible
they are
prophecies.
so-
Before it even happened, and then it happens to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bible is accurate, man.
They are
Actually,
incredibly, they are incredibly vague statements, sort of like Nostradamus.
Yeah.
That says, you know, in one day a leader will come and lead the people out of the land. You can apply that to billions of different things that have happened over the history.
there's
There's
also-
been
there's also
mathematical
the fact-
calculations done
That's-
in order to determine the accuracy of the Bible and biblical prophecy. And the likelihood
I'm
of
sure
it
there have
being
been.
inaccurate are like 1 to a billionth or something. It's incredible.
Oh wow, boy, that is incredible. Well, I gotta tell you, really, big numbers really impress me. I tell you. Yeah. Here's the thing. Well, first off, I mean, if you look at any sort of biblical scholarship, we know that a great many of the prophecies in the Bible were in fact written after the events that they're supposed to prophesy. Yeah. And as for a lot of the rest of them, well, again, like you said, they can be interpreted any number of ways. Okay, Isaiah 7 does not prophesy the coming of Christ. Yeah. Okay. And we also know that a lot of what was going on, a lot of what was being written in biblical scriptures that is supposed to be prophetic were in fact the authors of those scriptures writing about events of their day. They were editorializing and they were expressing their views on the events of their day. Right. That's a lot of what Revelation is.
And
Revelation isn't about
Christ did to prove his validity of who he was.
Which you've admitted you don't have other independent evidence for. So there's no point in talking about that.
Independent people that were there that experienced it. Multiple.
Okay, so why aren't there?
Into a collection called the Bible?
Yeah, why didn't
which our
Paul?
country was founded on.
Why didn't Paul?
I mean, it was. Admit it or not.
Yeah, I know you've been saying that bit about
fact.
the problem. Well, it's not a fact, but
it is a fact.
That's what
Protestants brought it over here. And that's what our country is founded on. They split from the Church of England to come over here.
They didn't come here to found a theocracy, though.
No, they came here to found a country based upon God. In God we trust.
Well,
that's a theocracy.
Yeah, which is a theocracy, and that's
well,
not what they came here to found on. Well, in God we trust was in God we trust. Again, your ignorance is just comprehensive. You don't know anything about history. You don't know anything about history. You don't know anything about the history. You don't know anything about the history of your own religion. Well, yeah, I've studied this stuff. You don't know anything about the history of your own religion. You don't know how evidence works. You don't know how evidence works. You don't know how the scientific method works.
Really?
You pretty much don't know a whole lot of anything except what you choose to believe based upon the premise that you got to start by believing there's a God, and then you work from there. But that's not how you do things, okay? I mean, that's how fundamentalism is. That's how fundamentalism works. But that's not how you do. That's not how you do evidence. That's not how you actually find out facts about stuff.
That's basic thinking. That's not fundamentalism.
Yeah.
Basic thinking.
I don't think you understand basic thinking. Okay, but thanks a lot. We gotta go. Okay, who's next?
Wow, Stephen.
Yeah. Again, yeah. It's again. If you start from the premise, right? My invisible friend exists.
Yeah.
Then anything that you find is just going to shore up that premise that you started from, because that's what you want to believe, right? So. Again, read through. Let me just. I'll just come up with. Here it is from John Adams.
Yeah. Now, just before you go into the quotes, regardless of what the first couple people on a boat came to America and what their plan was, what the founding fathers and the people who actually started this country, the United States of America, whether they had the same ideas as the people on those boats or different ideas, they're the ones who won.
It is true that a lot of the people who came to America originally were Christians. Of course they were.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the culture that you lived in. But did they come here to found an exclusively Christian nation? No. What they came here to found was a nation in which people could worship freely without government intrusion.
Exactly.
Because they had come from Europe and they saw exactly what sort of horrible stuff can happen when you mix government and religion. Yeah. And so this is why you get things like in the Treaty of Tripoli, 1797, Article 11. This was signed by John Adams, President John Adams at the time. The government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. And he goes on to say that the United States is not a Christian nation any more than it is a Jewish nation or a Mohammedan nation. And then here in Thomas Paine, actually getting back to Jefferson, he says, I consider the government of the United States as interdicted, not sure. Well, prevented by the Constitution from meddling with religious institutions, their doctrines, disciplines, or exercises. And then he says later on in a letter to Major John Cartwright, the common law existed while the Anglo-Saxons were yet pagans at a time when they had never yet heard the name of Christ pronounced or knew that such a character had ever existed. So, of course, the laws that are that our country are based on, while Christianity absorbed a lot of those laws into their own system, they predated Christianity, of course, because Christianity got the laws from somewhere. So, yes, a lot of the original founding fathers, were they Christian? Sure. Did they come here to found a Christian nation based on the Bible? Well, no. What they came here was to found a free country where you could worship and not have the government looking over your shoulder and telling you what to do. But again, you know, I wouldn't expect Dan to quite be able to know the difference.